My name is Michelle. I am the CMO and the managing partner at Tenety, and we're really excited to present today the Tech for Impact showcase here at the World Economic Forum. I have with me here Andreas Itten, he's Tenety's CEO, and before we get into the exciting startup pitches, I'll hand over to him for a quick introduction.
Thanks very much, and thanks for coming to uphill here from the promenade. Great to have you all here. So as Michelle said, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Tenety, and Tenety, we are a global innovation ecosystem and early stage investor with the ambition to fostering innovation in the financial sector. I have a couple of slides, if I'm not mistaken here. So what we do actually cover three main stakeholders. On one hand, we very much close work with startups, helping them to scale, to grow, to be faster. We also have our own fund, so we invest in these companies, so we have skin in the game. Then we have like our corporate partners, such as UBS, for instance, where we very much help them to get access to promising startup innovations, connect them, with the startup ecosystem in order to scale them up. So that's a bit, like the scale up story. And then obviously we also have a very big investor network. We are an investor on our own. We have our own VC fund where we invest into early stage companies. We also are not just kind of a Swiss company. We started originally as a spin-off from the Swiss Stock Exchange, are now fully independent. So we do have a hub or operations here in Zurich. It's like 2 hours from Davos. Then a big team in Singapore, which is covering kind of our Southeast Asian region. And we also recently opened up in Estonia with an incubator in Tallinn. I think we're around since 2015. And what we do today is bringing those great companies to Davos together with our partner, Doconomy. And by the way, we're also an investor in Doconomy, so just to disclose that. This is actually the way how we actually like to, work together with our kind of portfolio companies, or actually do things together, not just, giving them money, because with that we also have some control what's happening with the money. Joke aside, I think we very often, do these partnerships, and I think today it's going to be the stage of the startups to show that, we can actually bring real use cases and people who create real impact to Davos. Obviously, there will be some discussions and, some kind of thought leadership here, but I'm particularly proud to actually bring real startup use cases here. And we did that already yesterday, and today is a different topic. And Michelle will maybe give a quick introduction about the topic, and then I'm shutting up here.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you. Yes. Now, very excited to bring startups here. We have a total of 15 this week. Yesterday, we already had the first day focused on finance and AI, and today, very excited for biodiversity and nature. It's just great to have the founders come here and actually share their story and how they create impact at the intersection actually of technology, finance, AI, nature, biodiversity, but also the next few days, representation, mental health, food and agriculture. So a huge diversity of ideas, of solutions. And without further ado, actually I want to get started, and we have today 4 startups that are ready to take the stage. The first one is ClimateTrade. We have here with us today Fran Benedito, the CEO, and I would hand over directly to you.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Big round of applause.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you, and thank you for being here. Sit down? Okay, much better. You can say it loud, doesn't matter. So anyways, we are pretty good here in a pretty petit comité, no? So that's great. So it's great to be in Davos. Thank you so much, Doconomy, Tenety, for the invitation. It's a long time I know Andreas already. He's very humble. He's a great visionary for everything to do with investment in fintech and climate tech. So there have been investors and supporters of ClimateTrade as well since the beginning. So we have that bunch of investors that you have, that group of investors, you appreciate, Some of them much better than others, obviously, but always, yeah. So basically today I'm gonna speak about what is biodiversity, nature, capital, carbon markets, and positive impact, okay? So that's my topic always. I hope to be attractive today about the topic. And so I'm gonna start about what is ClimateTrade, no? What do we do briefly and who I am. So I'm the founder of CEO of ClimateTrade. I've been in the financial world for more than 15 years, innovation, fintech, in BBVA, which was the leading banking technology in the world for many years. So I'm already 44, so I've been, whenever there was no iPhone, I was there. So we got all the innovation at that time, right? So anyways, I got out of that part because at some point I was very worried about what was happening to or what's gonna happen to our planet. My daughter was coming, my partner's daughter was coming as well. I was a banker, so I switched to the white part of the equation, right, to the good part of the equation, and I decided that I had to do something in terms of generating funding, sustainable finance for companies that do the different, generating projects, generating impact at scale. And that was inspired by Project Drawdown at some point. So today, ClimateTrade, it is the biggest marketplace for carbon credits in the world. But today, I want to explain you why we have to go after that. We have to surpass the part of carbon, and we have to go to biodiversity and natural capital. So today, I don't know if you know, but El Niño is starting 2023, but it's going to take effect 2024. It implements the effects of global warming are going to be maximized by the Niño this year. And that's something that we all are feeling around the world. We are seeing all these weather events around different countries. And that's what generates not only people suffering, but the species, right? If you don't know, actually we have like around 1.2 million species in the world, around that, but that is not spread around the world. It is 36 hotspots that aggregate that 1.2 million species. So they are concentrated in those hotspots. And those hotspots, they don't have more than around 2.5% of the total land in the world. So that means that there are these areas that we have to conserve and conservate, and we have to support. And how do we do this, right? So basically, because we can lose not only the species, and the ecosystem services, no? So this is very important. When we talk about ecosystem services, imagine that you are a mining company, that you are mining gold or mining lithium, for example, for the batteries today. What do you do whenever you leave that area when you mine for lithium? Are you restoring that area? Are you not restoring that area? So this is a problem of biodiversity in the area, right? That you have to take care. That's ecosystem services. We can restore them, and you can use credits in order to bring that back to as it was before and support that biodiversity in the area. So today we have carbon credits. Carbon credits, as you know, are a good way to support sustainable finance and to bring projects to life. What we like is to, and you heard a lot about the Guardian this year and all the problems that happened with some type of credits that were not reputable, and we need to go, obviously, but initiatives like the ICBCM, you know, are today live. So we have the carbon core principles that can bring high quality to the different carbon credits in the market. And progressively, we are bringing a common agreement between what is important, what is to support in terms of carbon credits, which credits are worth and which credits are not worth, no? So we are all into that, right? So carbon credits for us, and we've been working on this since 2017, what we have to look is at if it's generating impact or not. If it is generating a positive impact, what we do with that carbon credit, or is not generating that positive impact. So because today we have REDD+ projects, reforestation projects, but if you go to a reforestation project that by nature it would look that would be better than a conservation project, maybe there is monocultive reforestation and is doing some harm in the area that you are reforesting. No? So at the end, it's not that easy, right? It's different things that you can do. Is it carbon capturing is good or is bad, right? What do you think? Because Sometimes carbon capturing, you have to spend a lot of money to bring to a technology that maybe, depending on the technology, is going to take so many years that the problem won't be solved by this technology that we are putting so many millions. There are other carbon capturing technologies that are bringing to the same wells that are popping up oil, and they are incentivizing to pump out more oil. So, and then in the US is subsidizing that. So there are different things. We have to take care if this has an impact or not. That's always my goal. Look at if it's gonna be generating something, and then try to do it at a scale with the solutions, right? That's what I thought when I created ClimateCoin in the past. But anyways, so we have to move forward. What we did last year, we created the first biodiversity protocol in the world with Terrazos. It was announced in the COP with the president of BERA. 3 days before our speech, they launched their own biodiversity protocol, I imagine, because we were announcing it that day. But yes, we launched in COP with the director of Terrazos, the president of BERA, and myself, the Voluntary Biodiversity Credits Initiative, with the first protocol for biodiversity credits. The first project in the world that issued biodiversity credits is in ClimateTrade. So you can find not only carbon credits, you can find biodiversity, energy, carbon forward, and soon offtake agreements in our platform. And I explain you later about that. So obviously, and very quick, one biodiversity credit, it means protection for 30 years of 10 meters squares of land, of a protected area, obviously. It doesn't imply only carbon, it implies carbon plus species. So in this case, Terrazos has a project in a habitat bank. It has a habitat bank in Colombia, Banco de Niebla, which is a habitat bank you can find in ClimateTrade. And as I told you, you can support the conservation of an area, not only carbon, but as well biodiversity. So today, I imagine that you have heard about the task for nature, like the TFND, right? So the TFND, what it brings is this task force is going to bring what is the guidelines for biodiversity, let's say, investment and support from the companies. In the future, the companies will have to support or will have to be reporting around 40% of the investment on sustainability, what is carbon, what is ESG, what is all related to the E of the ESG, will have to be 40% in biodiversity. We are very early on this, but as always, no, Matthias, when you see something before, you get adapted, you try to bring it live before anyone, no? So this is something is going to happen. Every time more, the people is talking more about biodiversity. Today in Davos is a great topic these days, and new funds about biodiversity are being created. And yeah, we think that the Terrazos initiative already has been, another ones are being creating biodiversity credits from now on. I don't know if you know, Netherlands is one of the countries that are 10 years ahead of people in terms of biodiversity, but they didn't have any biodiversity credits yet. And now it's coming, no? So basically, what we have I don't know, don't have a timer, so I don't know if I'm running out of time. Oh, okay, I'm out of time, okay. So, sorry for that. So, basically, what we are trying to do in ClimateTrade is support not only these projects, but any project in the world that can support that areas, that hotspots, that can bring back biodiversity, can support the species, and at the same time, can, at a scale, solve the biggest challenges that we have in the planet. So thank you so much today.
Now we're opening for Q&A. Yes, please. Yeah, we do have some time.
Hello. So I have one quick question. So I know like the carbon market opportunities and and all that. So I'm just wonder for climate, like what is the example of the project that you're working with, and can you give us the example?
Of course. Today we have. Since the beginning, we have been supporting projects of different areas, like starting When we started in 2017, we had only 4 projects. Today, we have access to more than 200 million tons of CO2 around the world, carbon credits. So we started with renewables, whenever renewables was something to be supported by carbon markets. Today, we have biomass, carbon capturing. We have reforestation, IFM, improved forest management, conservation, REDD+, waste to energy, because people think that avoidance is not good. Again, go to the impact part. It is a project of, for example, I put you one story. I tell you about one story. I was in the COP. My first COP, it was in Bonn. I made a speech in the COP, and one guy from Brazil came there and said, "Hey, Fran, do you know the Bahia Guanabara in Brazil?" See, no, I never been in Brazil. She's like, "This is Rio de Janeiro. Whenever the people entered." From like the Portuguese entered Brazil. Okay, what happens? The mafia takes the garbage, and they get the contracts, get the money, and put the garbage. They don't put sanitization in the floor, so all the poison goes to the sea, and all the fishes are dead in the bay. So what these guys do, they get all that garbage, sanitization, they cover it, they plug it, and they generate biogas out of the methane that garbage is emitting. So you say, oh, that's not a removal. That's not good. Yes, it is. Because which is better? The first option or the second option, right? You generate CO2, but you avoid methane, and you avoid poisoning the oceans, right? So we want to have all type of projects, not just technological removals, which are the top of the hype. No. We want to support what is good for the planet, what is good for our future generations, what is good for us, right? So I think we have to have all type of projects. That's why we have more than 200 projects in the platform today. Thank you for the question. No, we can hear each other with no mic.
So we have 2 things. We would like to support as many projects as possible, right? And on the other side, what's happening with Vera, not considering Swiss company, this is what happened this year, means that not all projects have the impact we expect.
Yep.
So
ratings.
Right? Yeah. So on your platform, how do you do additional vetting? What do you do to be sure that what you propose is going to be the best, in a sense?
Great question.
Jumping and saying, Vera is good and I just want that.
No, I won't say that. But I mean, Vera, with particularities, what you have to think, and people have to have common sense. Normally, what all these campaigns come from people putting money at disaccreditate this because they don't like that we do that investments on that type of things, right? That's the first thing. Because if you say they demonize the carbon credits, this year, the carbon markets went down 75% because of all this press. You know which this money is coming from? Normally oil and gas, okay? I worked with some oil and gas companies. They buy carbon credits not to buy to offset, to speculate. So they want to make money as well on this, right? So the problem we have here is that press, okay, they did it wrong, yeah, but oil and gas did it well. So, but we are not having that bad press we have some bad press in the oil and gas, but they keep pumping oil, right? And they keep getting funding. So what we cannot demonize like at scale again. But yes, we need rules. We didn't have the right rules in the carbon markets, but that's like a nascent industry that crashed back in 2008, 2004, 2005, no? And then we are getting born again, and we need rules, and we need regulations, and we need to make it correctly. So yeah, they made mistakes, and there's people that makes bravery, but it happens everywhere in the world in different industries. What we have to know is some clear guidance rules that we have to follow, so at the end, we will be able to have carbon credits that support real projects. That's what we do. So basically, we have a supply team, pretty strong supply team. We have a protocol that he written. He's been 20 years in origination, the head of, coming from that Swiss company. He left not because of that, but coming from, yeah, we can say. But anyways, but yeah, we have that protocol for the credits that we get in our platform. We introduce ratings, okay, as well. And we try to do our best in that part of selecting the projects too. I mean, obviously, not every project can go to our platform. We have to make a double due diligence and scrutiny of what it comes there. I don't believe 100% today in ratings yet, because there are only a small percentage of credits rated, and this is all pouring money there. So only 10-15% of the projects are rated, not that much. But I believe in other technologies that I cannot disclose that we are going to be doing. Well, I can tell you we are going to do something with AI, obviously, no? But that's the thing that we are prioritizing this year. So all that components are the ones that are going to be helping my company.
Yeah, and I just want to add that we talk about bad projects, we don't really talk enough about the good ones.
Sorry again?
We talk a lot about the bad projects, but we don't really talk about the good ones.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, totally, 100%.
My name is from Innovate for Nature.
Hi, Philip.
And I was wondering what company that might maybe even be here at the VEF would you want to buy the biodiversity credits?
Wow, that's a great question. That I don't have yet an answer, maybe, but I don't know. I can tell you the ones in the promenade. I don't know. Obviously, for me, if I want to help the biodiversity, I would like the one that makes more noise, obviously, no? Because at the end, it's something that if we get a purchase by, imagine, Meta or I don't know, we saw in the promenade so many, or BlackRock or all these groups. Because at the end, we are working in the intersection of financial products as well. We are working on that part. And so we have, DP World is our customer, that you were saying. So it's one of our customers. But for example, imagine Meta could be a good buyer of biodiversity. But I don't know if they, when I talk to sustainability managers, they are not yet there. And so at the end, it's like, I knocked at the door of all the investment funds that were buying biodiversity, but at the end, they invest in companies that do something in biodiversity. So they buy equity on those companies. They don't buy credits, because at the end, we have a one of the biggest fund managers here, or LP managers here, and they need a return. So in carbon credits, potentially, you have a return, but you have a vintage as well in the carbon credit. If you buy carbon credits, in 5 years, that carbon credit normally is old, and people don't want to buy it. And they pay less than you paid in the past. So, you know, to put that in a fund, you have to be investing in different types of strategies, right? So imagine biodiversity. But I think that it will be the investment of the future, obviously. But yeah, Meta, BlackRock, if you can bring them, I tell you more names. Eh? Thank you, man.
Building on Philip's question, I wonder how you find traction right now, but also how the audience here could support with the three things. Well, we are in Davos, and also the ones that are joining on the stream. What are the three things that we could support you to grow your market? And
thank you so much for that question. Well, today is like basically supporting the taking action, no? I mean, if or spreading the word about taking that action to the companies, no? I think that there's like kind of collapse as well on the part of buying. I saw this year a lot of purchases in carbon credits in one oil and gas company owned by one of the richest guys in the world. And that's CCUS, which is not helping at all those type of projects, right? So if you can support, like, let's say, supporting those projects indirectly through the companies or the people you know, and bringing them to companies like Matthias or companies like us, that we are supporting those projects through market.climatetrade.com. You have all the projects there. You can see, and you can even take action as an individual, not only companies. So yeah, thank you.
All right. If there are no more questions, thank you so much, Fran.
My pleasure.
Round of applause. And next up, very excited to introduce David Lunsford from Stream Ocean. I hope I pronounced this correctly, probably not, but very much looking forward to your presentation.
Hi, everyone. Is this on? All right, great. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I can't see the presentation, so maybe if I look to my left and right, you'll see that I'm just checking that I'm on the right slide. Ah, great. I'm going to, I think myself as well as the next a person will be talking a little bit about the ocean. I guess I want to say that even with regards to the previous presentation, nature is becoming a very important topic also in the carbon market space. I think that what we've seen over the last 5-10 years has been a quite strong shift towards even in, let's say corporates, big corporates, both the ones that are just IT companies or service companies, including industrial companies, realizing that just putting money into the increased efficiency of industrial plants is not how we're going to solve climate change, because we have a biodiversity crisis as well. So we need to think about nature overall, working with nature, trying to have nature become let's say, a partner in solving the climate change crisis. Only in this way will we be able to make sure that we have a healthy ecosystem. We humans rely on the ecosystem as well as all the other plants and animals on the planet. So we can't just solve something by putting a Band-Aid over industry. We need to try to look more holistically about our impact on the planet and the other living things on the planet and try to solve everything. So that's just at a high level. And I just want to say that the ocean is suffering as bad as all the other ecosystems, probably even worse. And what's really unfortunate is that you and I and 99.999% of people, we don't spend much time in the ocean. We can't. So we don't see it. We don't see the impact. And that's what Stream Ocean is effectively here to do, bring impact to you and my desktop and to our fingertips on a more regular basis and quantify the impact. So I just have a couple of statistics up here. I think it goes without saying that there's billions of people on the planet that rely on the ocean for food and sustenance. And there's also been a tremendous decrease in the number of animals and the species that have been living in the ocean. These are estimates because, like I said, we do a sort of sampling of what we see in the ocean, and that we can't accurately quantify anything because it's too big. 75% of the planet is covered by ocean. How could we we can't even count accurately all of the people in the planet. So how could we try to quantify exactly everything in the ocean? It's just not possible. And what is happening right now, which might, governments, as well as everyone in this room, I hope, recognizes there's a crisis facing the ocean and action needs to be taken. So governments are stepping in, and just like governments have done for the last 40 years on climate change and measuring emissions, they're doing in the ocean. But where you start in the ocean is you start looking at what companies are making the biggest negative impact on the ocean. And those are the companies that install infrastructure, because that stuff doesn't normally go there. It has an effect on sea life. And the industry that is scaling up the fastest, it might surprise you, but the ocean-based industry that's scaling up the fastest right now is offshore wind. It is a green energy solution, but it has a big biodiversity impact. And what we see in Europe and also in the United States are regulations on offshore wind to start monitoring the impact they have on biodiversity. Because again, like I said in the beginning, you can't solve a green energy demand with another biodiversity negative impact. It doesn't work that way. So offshore wind is scaling. It's a green energy solution, but they have to start quantifying and reporting on the impact they have on fish and mammals in the ocean. And the way regulation is already now starting is in the tendering process. The big energy companies tender for zoning permits before they build their offshore wind farms. And in that process, there are sustainability criteria. So you see this, you see regulations covering these big energy companies in in a lot of European countries, and it's going to cover all of European countries as part of what's called the Net Zero Industry Act, which is coming into force in a couple of years. But right now, there's a handful of countries that have already taken the lead. And I believe that there's going to be offshore wind sustainability policies covering probably all of the major countries around the world. Let's say the OECD, probably between now and 2030. You already have major global offshore wind developers. You see the logos on the screen. They have already voluntarily committed to becoming nature net positive by 2030. And that actually, in order for a company like that to become nature net positive by 2030, it means that their offshore wind farms have to become nature net positive effectively now, because when they win a tender, they start building a project about 5 or 6 years after they win a tender. So if you want to start doing something in 2030, that means the tender you win in 2024 or 25 needs to have sustainability criteria integrated into it. So there's enough, I would say, there's enough inertia in the industry right now whereby all the major offshore wind farms are becoming nature net positive. So there's a lot of quantification that's needed. This is where StreamOcean steps in. There's no great monitoring for life under the sea. So what we are, you can't use people, and even if you have a person, that's on a boat driving around a remote-controlled vehicle, that's also really not very scalable and it's quite expensive. And so what our proposition is, let's use cameras. Let's build a surveillance system under the water. And these underwater cameras are effectively low cost. You can charge them with a surface-based buoy, a buoy that's on the surface of the water that has solar panels. And you can use object recognition technology, which is facial recognition under the water. It works for fish. We've proved it. So this is some video footage from a pilot site in the Maldives where it's very clear and beautiful tropical waters. But just like when you and I walk around the airport, we're recognized and validated who we are. We want to do the same thing underwater, and that's what we're doing. So effectively what we're doing now, you can see on the left side of this screen, there are people and remote-controlled vehicles under the water acquiring underwater video all the time. StreamOcean is working on this little buoy-based system, like I said, with a camera down here that stays deployed for multiple months on end. And effectively, we record underwater video, and we process it with machine learning technology to recognize fish species. We're starting off now by working with some of those big companies that I showed you back here. They actually are just kind of testing our solution by sending us underwater video that they already have. And so we process it with machine learning, and we get them used to the fact that they don't have to have scientists just sitting and watching video anymore. They can very quickly process it, very cheap, and just get information about what fish is in the video. And they can then go back to their regulator and start talking about the kind of diversity that they saw under the water when they were anyways inspecting their offshore wind turbines. So it really works. It's an easy solution to a much needed problem. And I guess we see ourselves, offering this software platform and coming up with very detailed fish indices metrics, which scientists have done for years, decades. The data has simply been gathered by people rather than cameras up until this point. But we can just use the same methodology to deliver the same data points with video and data that's acquired automatically. And again, I kind of mentioned this before, we have a camera that we have designed, and this is kind of an optional offering to our clients if they want to deploy a camera for longer periods of time and understand what's happened maybe over a 6-month duration under the water. And yeah, this is who StreamOcean is, and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. By the way, I probably forgot to say in the beginning, we're based in Zurich. We're a very small startup, about 1 year old, with around 6 employees. And yeah, happy to answer any of your questions. I hope I didn't talk too long.
Right over here.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, quick question. So you're talking about it for wind. Other fixed locations, nuclear plants, items that have intakes, and you could use the same technology for something like that, correct?
Exactly, and the good thing about machine learning is the more data that you have, the better the identification becomes. So we're really interested to process as much underwater video as we can. The actual sector and the client's business is you know, it's kind of analog, and yeah, it's actually yeah, we're negligent in terms of the sector, but for us the sector, like I said, that's getting really regulated is probably the one we should focus our most efforts on, and so that's why we are looking at offshore wind. Yeah. Yes.
Are you also, sorry, are you also measuring the temperature of the water? Are you using any algae to, what's any other solution, or is it just following the fish?
Yeah, when we're as we, it's a great question. Oops. Back here on this, with this buoy, you can we're looking. We aim to attach a number of different sensors here in the area of the camera. In this buoy, we'll measure the surface temperature of the water, and then yeah, we'll gather. We'll gather a temperature, however deep this might be, and also we're thinking about trying to integrate acoustics as well. You can for large mammals, of course, you can sound travels great underwater, so you can monitor large mammals and other animals that you might not even be able to see because they're so far away. Yeah.
I guess I was trying to figure out whether you can use this as a way of registering, validating, measuring, validating, and registering the impacts
Yes.
that is required for carbon trading.
I think over time, my feeling is that what's called blue carbon it's a very nascent market.
Right.
So some of the, as long as there is a big enough market there, it would be very interesting to provide data sets that can be used to validate, like you said, if a certain sustainability criteria of that project was actually met or not. That's exactly what we're doing, right? Is we're measuring a baseline and then calculating the deviation that the project has according to a baseline before the project happened, just like you do in carbon credits or almost any kind of environmental impact assessment. So, yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for a brilliant presentation. And I mean, obviously you are of the right material, as you are a ocean monitoring company based in Zurich. I think
Yes.
that is a very ambitious starting point. I'm wondering, I love this, and thank you for doing this. I'm wondering, given the recent pathetic decision by the Norwegian government in regard of deep sea mining, is that and you alluded to that you were focusing on regulatory driven kind of, as many, I would say, sustainability businesses that are working with disclosing something are doing. Are you looking at deep sea mining as well, or is wind the only thing that you're focusing on?
Well, I think I would love to say that we are focusing on a lush list of different potential clients. There's several reasons that we focus on offshore wind, and in the future, we could also provide services for deep sea mining. The only hesitation we have in, let's say, in the early stages are, well, deep sea mining, as implied in the name, is very deep, and the visible light closer to the surface is much more handy for us, and so. When you find offshore wind farms, where you find offshore wind farms right now is about 50 meters deep, and so when they are driving their ROVs, I could show you some videos. It starts getting quite dark around 40 meters, and if you're in the North Sea, it's already dark at 30 meters. And so, well, we want there to be good visibility, and machine learning. You have to have the background to be somewhat predictable, or the learning becomes really good when you have comparable backgrounds across a lot of different settings. And when you have a light, it changes the background a lot. And people use camera in deep sea mining, and they shine a light. And so I guess I just want to say, for us to provide a really scalable solution, offshore wind is the target, but mining or even frankly, our dream is to just have cameras all over the ocean, monitoring coral reefs, monitoring mangrove restoration, monitoring anything that is either just a pure positive nature restoration project or the impact assessment of an industrial installation.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's my point, that if you are becoming the point of reference for these monitoring opportunities or the data coming out of it, it's easier to be that point of reference rather than be the point of reference for data where there is light. So I would just say that investing in that position will probably serve you well over time.
Yeah.
But of course, focus will also serve you well, and I'm sure Andy, as one of our investors, would allude to that. Focus, focus, focus. So
Yes.
I'm not gonna ring his bell anymore. But I think you're absolutely right. But the position and the business focus is not necessarily the same thing, because there's an evolutionary journey, of course, right? And the credibility in your measurements would then be able to be applied at greater depth or with less light. So it's all about what you want to achieve, and where you're starting is not the same thing.
Yeah. Well, thanks for the points. Yeah.
Hello, I have a quick question. Sorry. Just now you mentioned about coral reefs and mangroves. So I'm just wondering, besides fish and mammals, which are animals, do you also monitor like plants and the growth of a coral reef in terms of right now or something in the future?
I think we potentially could give some estimates. I guess the easiest thing to describe maybe as a coral reef, where coral reefs can cover, of course, thousands of kilometers of area, and when we put a camera in the water, our camera is intended to be as still or stagnant as possible. And with a still camera, you want to watch everything else, everything that moves by. And when something, on the other hand, is still in the water, you might, and takes up a large area, in order to measure it, you might want to use a different technique, which is, have a remote operated vehicle and drive around the area, just to measure the biomass of the area, for example. So I guess I would say it really, if you wanted to point the camera at something, which we have also done in that, like I have an interesting time lapse of this. These cameras have been deployed for several months, and we've run a time lapse, and we can actually watch the coral grow, which I honestly, you don't see much of that outside of a laboratory. And so we've even seen some coral bleaching and coral recovery, where in scientific publications they say, oh, when it bleaches, it doesn't recover. Actually, we've seen it. So there's some, actually some research that we've done that is kind of disproves a little bit of other research reports. So I guess I wanted to say, with our continual streaming video, you could easily make a time series or a time lapse, just taking like one image per day over a 6-month period, and you can watch something grow and estimate how much it grows. However, of course, here you have a limited range of view, right? So it's not going to cover this whole coral restoration site. It's just going to cover probably a few meters of that you can actually visibly see quite well. So it really depends on the purpose that.
Yeah. We can talk about that because we are involving a project related to this. So,
all right.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, and please stick around and ask all other questions after the session. It's great to see so much engagement. All right, now we are coming. Yes, please, big round of applause. Yes, thank you. All right, so now the third presentation for today. I am very excited to introduce Pooja Mahajan. She is the CEO and founder at Azera, and we're going from the ocean to the skies. So please give her a huge welcome. Yes, either one, and you can take.
Lots of hands. I wish I had 3 hands. So thank you very much. I'd like to start by saying thank you to the Economy and Kennedy for organizing this event, and I'm very happy to be here. I was at the Economy event last year at UBS, and it's really a thrill to be here now presenting. So fantastic. Thank you, Andy, as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit about the intersection of technology, and sustainability. And when I talk about sustainability, this is ultimately affecting nature and biodiversity. The other two presentations earlier today before me, I'm so inspired. You know, climate change is driving innovation at such a level that is so exciting. And I applaud both of you for what you've presented today. And I'm going to start with a bit of a story. Back in 2019, we were at the cusp of the global pandemic, and I had just finished I'm a little bit older than 44. I had just finished 25 years in aviation, and I was the CEO of a private aviation company. And one of my clients, an owner of an aircraft, asked me to fly his aircraft from Moscow to London and back, but it was to transport his dog. And I tried everything I could to convince him not to do it. I ran the numbers. The cost of fuel alone was $100,000. And at that time, we had just started something new. We had started the EU ETS scheme, EU emissions trading scheme. And we actually had the ability to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions generated by these flights. So I told him, you know, you're going to generate 10 tons of greenhouse gases with these flights. It didn't make a difference. I was wrong. We flew the dog. But this flying dog event was the start of my midlife crisis. I began to question everything about my life and, you know, this career in aviation I was so proud of. Again, I'm old. Back in 1996, I graduated engineering. I had a double major in aerodynamics and environmental engineering. And back then, when I graduated, sustainability was just very theoretical. There were very few jobs. So aerodynamics it was, and I started a career in aviation. And fast forward 25 years, and I'm flying pets in private jets. And the impact, the climate impact of what I was doing became very non-theoretical, very real. And of course, I started to think, how can I intersect aviation, my love for aviation, with my dreams for sustainability? And just to add, you know, aviation is not something that's just about flying pets. It's growing year over year, 4%. And during that pandemic, aircraft were the ones flying emergency equipment and passengers where they needed to be. So we cannot discount aviation. So how do we live with it? And so back in 2021, we established Azera, and actually Azera was, for me, a switch to sustainability at the beginning. We just focused on sustainability, and we built an online platform to help consumers calculate and compensate their lifestyle emissions. And much to my astonishment, it didn't go viral. We realized pretty fast B2C was not the way to go. And we pivoted, like many startups, to B2B. And we decided, thinking that if we built a carbon market exchange, then we could incentivize buyers and sellers to invest in the carbon market. Well, that's a true statement. In fact, there are many carbon market exchanges in the marketplace. But also there are many carbon market exchanges in the marketplace. So how could we differentiate ourselves? And ultimately the solution came back to my crisis, which was intersecting aviation with sustainability and helping airlines and operators find a way to act against the emissions they were generating in a singular platform. Sorry, just a quick thing about this. In order to do that, we needed to build a world-class team. So this is I just wanted to shout out to there's 3 people here that are from Azera. We built a team that are both sustainability experts and aviation experts. So that was a little bit hard to find. And we began innovating on a solution. So for the last 18 months, we've been building a solution that will help decarbonize aviation. And so how do you do that? How do you decarbonize aviation? The first thing is with technology. And many of us have heard about electric and hydrogen-powered aircraft. But these are evolutions that are years to come. They're not here today. What is readily available today is the use of green or sustainable fuels, which are replacements for Jet A, the current Jet A. This is a big challenge for the aviation industry, and in fact, it's been established, it's a big driver in the net zero strategy of the aviation sector. By 2050, 65% of aircraft should be operating with sustainable aviation fuel. That's the target. The other elements of the strategy are the use of economic instruments like voluntary carbon credits and compliance credits, so compliance markets, back to this EU ETS. And then finally, the use of data analytics for operational efficiency. So how do you make your operations more efficient? Management of fuel, for example, through data. And so we built a B2B SaaS platform. We called it Azera Celeste, and it's designed to help operators mitigate their emissions. We bring them the voluntary market, the compliance market, and most critically, access to buy sustainable aviation fuel. So it starts with the measurement. What is interesting to note is that outside of the EU, the vast majority of airlines and aircraft operators are not yet measuring their emissions. So they don't even know how much they're emitting. So they're not really thinking about mitigation and reducing those emissions. What we do here is we call the flight data from the airline's operating software, and we automatically calculate those emissions. And what's more, if you see there's a line in yellow there, we flag data errors. So the flagging of data errors is essential because most airlines are doing hundreds of movements a day, and the data is being gathered through a variety of sources: GPS, automated sources, manual input, and they're currently manually scrubbing their data in order to do this work. So we've automated that process and highlighted the errors, which saves hundreds of hours of time. We've estimated about 800 hours for the average airline. Once the measurements are done, we enter into the compliance phase. Now, most airlines internationally that are operating internationally are facing 4 compliance markets in the world today. They actually have to buy compliance allowances if they exceed a threshold. So our platform notifies them when they need to buy allowances and sorts all of their data into the various compliance markets so that they can actually generate reports for those compliance markets. The next step and the last step, most important step, is that the operators have now access to buy sustainable aviation fuel to reduce their emissions, buy voluntary carbon credits to compensate for their emissions, and we'll get into the carbon credits and how we choose them. And then finally, they can comply by buying compliance allowances on our platform. So ultimately, what we've done is we tell our clients, you cannot manage what you don't measure, right? So we've created a system that allows airlines and aircraft operators to first measure their emissions, comply if they need to, and then mitigate those emissions. And in doing this platform, they can trust the data they have. They cut out third-party intermediaries, which is something that is very common today. And they're saving, of course, time and money. So we believe our theory is working. So far, we've helped mitigate the emissions of 300 aircraft. We've mitigated emissions of over 60,000 tons. And we financed 25 high-quality carbon mitigation projects through the acquisition of carbon credits. And these projects, similar to the first presentation today, we don't focus on any one. We try to look at different technologies and recommend a variety of projects that are supporting nature and biodiversity, of course. There's more. We were, in 2021, when we started, we were selected by Tenety to be part of their first climate incubator, so thank you, Andy. And we were last year selected by Foresight Canada to be one of the top 50 most investable companies in clean tech. And we also were selected by Transport Canada as part of their net zero strategy to test Celeste with 3 commercial airlines. and we're doing that right now. And the World Economic Forum holds, aside from being here and being with you, holds a very special place in our hearts because we last year won a Startup Innovation Award at the World Innovation Economics event. And this year, today, it was announced that we won Top Innovator in a Sustainability Challenge, Aviation Challenge, by the World Economic Forum, a group called Uplink. So that was just announced this morning. So what's next for us and what's next for the industry, and all hard-to-abate industries. So hard-to-abate are industries that have difficulty in decarbonizing. The first thing I mentioned earlier is compliance market expansion. So the success, the EU ETS is in fact a success, the EU emissions trading scheme. And so other governments are noticing and starting to implement their own regional compliance schemes, which means airlines operating internationally are affected. So the more schemes get added, the more they have to provide compliance reporting and comply if they're operating in those regions. So our platform is easily adaptable and it will streamline this burden that they face. It's a very complicated mess. Sustainable aviation fuel adoption, this is the single most critical step for aviation in the future. And what we've done right now, the problem is there's a low availability because there's low production and very high pricing. And physically, most operators don't have access to the fuel. So we've created a book and claim system which allows airlines and operators to access the fuel and pay for it and claim the environmental benefit, but not physically use the fuel. Our goal with this is to create a demand signal that will stimulate production. And our goal also is to make sure that sustainable aviation fuel becomes, we can help drive the production of that both on and off the platform because it is such a critical component for the sustainability of the sector, for the transformation of aviation. And the last piece is the quality. We've talked a lot about that today, high quality of data. Our goal is also another theme, a common theme. We plan to introduce machine learning into the platform in order to help improve our ability to manage the data and identify errors. So this is something that is coming for us. We want to make sure that operational efficiency is at its highest. Ultimately, we're creating a digital ecosystem that is driving climate change. We're connecting all of these key players in this very complicated process of emissions measurement, compliance management, and mitigation. And the nice thing about this is this ecosystem that we've created with Celeste can be replicated with other hard-to-abate industries like shipping and ground transport. And I guess that's where we're going next. I'm just going to close with one more thing. I get asked all the time, so I thought it would be nice to tell you. Why did we choose the name Azzera? Azzera comes from the Italian verb azzerare. And when you tell someone Azzera, you're asking them to make something equal to zero. And our mission is to catalyze the aviation industry to become net zero. So that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
How can we invest?
Come see me. Come see me.
Hi.
Hi.
Loved the story at the start.
Thank you.
I think it'll be something I remember from the entire week.
I remember this for my whole life. Trust me.
It's a great story. The SAF.
Yeah.
Somebody pays but does not receive the actual SAF.
Correct. Somebody else uses it.
Somebody else uses it. Does that other person pay for it?
No.
Okay, so
they pay for regular Jet A fuel.
Yeah.
And let's say Matthias is on a private jet and he's in Zurich and he wants to go fly his dog somewhere, right?
Got it.
Zurich doesn't have sustainable aviation fuel. The fuel's in Paris.
Got it.
So Andy's in Paris. He's going to use the fuel,
yeah,
but he's going to pay for Jet A.
Okay.
Matthias will use Jet A, but he's paid for the fuel and he can claim the benefit.
Got it. And Andy can't claim the benefit.
Andy cannot claim the benefit, and we control that with paperwork.
And so how do you ensure that Andy can't claim the?
He does not get those documentation that is attributed to the fuel.
Centralized to you.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, we manage that process. Yeah.
Very clear.
Yeah.
Are you using any certification establishment? Have you established that already, or for the carbon credits?
For the carbon credits, that's very good. So we, as I said, we use a variety of different carbon credits from different registries. So Verra, Gold Standard, etc. We've automated in the back end of our platform the retirement and transaction process. This is something that's our IP. So we're working on that for all of the registries. Right now we've started with Verra, and we're pushing Gold Standard as well. They're a little bit more stubborn.
Oh, sorry.
He's got the mic.
Real quick, on the data, you talk about high quality data. Who consumes the data? Where do you distribute it? Does it go to banks, or is it just the airline gets the information on their universal client?
Yeah, it's a B2B SaaS platform. So it's the operator who's the client, who's managing their own data, who gets access to their data and whatever they need to do with that data, right?
But could there be a use case where, I'm thinking about the financing side of it, right?
Well, exactly, to your point, that's exactly right. So financiers, like before Credit Suisse is what it is today, we had several conversations with them. They were very interested, they finance aircraft.
Right.
They're very interested in having access to this data so they can report their Scope 3 emissions, right?
Yeah, that's one of the things we're thinking about as it relates to reporting overall.
Yeah.
And the Scope 3.
So, yeah. So it's a possibility. It's not our priority today.
Okay.
But if someone wanted to invest and make that happen, we could do that.
Okay, thanks.
Condensation trails are, doubling the warming impact of aviation.
Yeah.
And they can be eliminated relatively easily if you can trace them and then change the altitude of, flying altitude. Are you, that's a bit the elephant in the room. What are you doing about that?
Well, obviously, our goal is to provide thought leadership and education, right? We want to decarbonize aviation because we don't believe aviation aircraft should be grounded. That's number one. But I don't know if I'm answering your question. But so, please repeat.
I'm talking about the condensation trails. So.
Oh yeah, contrails.
Contrails.
Yes.
So they are relatively easy to eliminate, and they will basically divide by two the environmental footprint, because the emission, again, it's not only about emission, it's warming that we need to target.
I didn't hear contrails. So yes, we are working with a company, an avionics company, that's working to to develop a program that allows operators to flight plan for the reduction and elimination of contrails in their flight planning. It doesn't change the back end. There'll still be emissions, right? So we still have to calculate those emissions. There's still compliance markets that need to happen. So all of the work with Celeste will still have to happen. But sure, starting point should be minimized, and we are working actively on that side as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Very inspiring, and I'm so curious to hear a lot more, but most curious, I'm eager to hear what is your ask to us sitting here in the audience and out there wherever they are. How can we support? How can we enable you or connect you with whoever, whatever, or enable the markets?
Yeah, ultimately, spreading the word is the most important thing. You build a startup. Like I said, we didn't go viral. And we're still not viral with this platform that I think is starting to prove itself. So we need to get bigger, and we need to scale. In order to scale, obviously the obvious answer to tell you is funding, right? So We are actively looking for funding. I think this Transport Canada opportunity is giving us a little bit of runway, to be honest. So we're good, but we are starting to look for funding. And ultimately, it's about expanding our ecosystem. So any player in that ecosystem, and there's a wide variety, we'd be happy for those connections. Even ClimateTrade, for example, we don't want to be limited to the carbon credits that we choose. We are very open. We'd like to do open source type of technology where we're connecting with other marketplaces, for example, to give operators the opportunity for diversity. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great. And now we are going back from the skies, back down, I think, to the oceans. Very excited to introduce you to Ulrike Freund. She is the co-CEO and co-founder at Reefs. Thank you. This is not, you can, oh, sorry, you can sit down.
Thank you. Well, it's really great to be here in such an intimate space. So cool, and it being full too. So, what about the light? Yeah, great. My name is Ulrike. I am co-founder and also co-CEO of Reefs. We used to be an association. We just turned AG, so exciting times ahead. You've heard from David before, I think, about coral reefs, for those of you who attended his talk. And I guess we all know, I don't have to tell you, coral reefs are in a really dire state, which is a shame because they are some of the most beautiful and most biodiverse ecosystems on our planet. So for me, they're also one of our biggest levers that we can use to safeguard biodiversity on this planet, because there's such an abundance of life in them that spills over into the whole ocean and also enables a lot of biodiversity in other ecosystems within the ocean and on the coast. Now, what happens when those coral reefs die? It's happening a lot around the world due to different reasons. One of them is climate change. Obviously, we've seen a lot of bleaching towards the end of last year. It will go on this year. There's a big El Niño rolling out, so this worldwide period of hotter ocean temperatures. So it's not over, sadly. I think we'll be hit with a lot of dead coral reefs next year. It might be even worse than 2017, potentially, where we had this big die-off. And whatever the reason is that the living coral cover is dying, corals are animals, some people don't know, that's why I'm mentioning it, is when that living cover is dead, the underlying three-dimensional framework of the reef, that's limestone that has been built up by the corals over hundreds of years. It's a porous kind of rock, and that starts crumbling down. It loses a lot of its complexity. What you see here is like a rubble field. It gets even worse if people use, for example, dynamite fishing because there's not enough fish left in the ocean. Then it's really reduced down to rubble, and that makes it very, very hard for such an area to regenerate on its own. It can happen, give it 10 years and protect it really well, but it usually is very hard because the way that also the water flow changes of over such an area of reef is not helpful in regenerating. The water starts moving faster because there's less in the way for that water to kind of catch itself and turn over. So you get less good transport and deposition of the larvae of all sorts of organisms, one of them being corals. Those larvae are tiny and they can't move, or not very fast on their own anyways. So they're dependent on being transported by that water flow to a suitable hard surface that they can attach to, feel good and start growing. And even then it takes a while for them to grow. So that's what we're trying to do, is rebuilding those surfaces, regenerating that slower recirculating water flow by really building the reef shape up from the ground. You'll see more of that in a second. And the vision with that is, we started 2020 with our first experiments, but is really in the next 10 years to be able to regenerate 1% of the world's coastline that is currently protected by coral reefs. And those 1% are about 710 kilometers. And if we achieve that within the next 10 years, then I think it won't be, then we can achieve maybe 10 or 20% until 2050. And that's really where we need to go in order to save coral reefs. Just a little bit about the start. This is my co-founder. one of my now 4 co-founders, but the first one, Marie, and me in the Maldives, we attended this workshop on coral restoration in 2019. And we brought our first material experiments. This is a 3D printed terracotta that you see here. These small tiles, the 10 by 10 centimeters, different surface structures for that small scale hydrodynamic action going on. And we just brought them. We didn't really plan a proper experiment. Marie is a doer, she had just made them. And I'm the scientist. I was like, wow, but it's not planned. No, we're taking them. I've got 100. We're taking an extra suitcase and we're putting them in the water. And we were working with the University of Milano here. They have this nice center in the Maldives. So we just put them in. And here we are explaining to the kind of more traditional coral restoration people. And they were like, they're just being very, I don't know, like, put them in, but don't expect much, you know. And I'm so glad we just put them in because this is what happened. And by just placing the material in the water at about 8 meters depth and then waiting, COVID hit, nobody even went back and touched these for 4 years. And just at some point, our collaborators went in and took some photographs so we could count recruits. But this is 3 years in, and that's from nothing, from these tiny larvae that are in the water anyways, if you give them the right substrate. And this is just last year, so after 4 years, this cube has been displaced a little bit, as you can see, by some currents, but nevertheless, corals are growing fine. So we knew this material was great. And we assembled a team. This is actually one of our collaborating scientists in Colombia. This is my team here. All female, which has been a great journey so far. We would like to get more diversified now. We have our first male in the team since a few months. And we developed, I actually have a brick here with me, I can show you later, but we have developed a system, a technology of stackable bricks that interact with the water flow in such a way and that we can assemble in such a way that it provides a good space not only for fish and all those other critters, but specifically for coral larvae to settle as well out of nothing, I would say. I always say we can put these in and then the rest is nature. Nature takes over. These would be the larvae in the water flow, settling down, and then they can start growing. And we've built the first one of these in 2021 in Colombia on an island called San Andres. This is Marie doing some last finishing touches on our first showcase. And it has been in the water ever since. Fish started using the structure and living in it very fast. Some facts, actually, we measured fish diversity with a visual count, or a diver sitting there counting fish. A very knowledgeable diver, not me. And we actually achieved a biodiversity of just fish that was as high as on the natural reefs in that area after just 3 to 6 months. So this just meant that the complexity of the structure is high enough for all sorts of different fish to actually like it. And then we count corals, of course, because we need corals to regrow a reef. And we counted more corals on our reef than on the natural reef. And also it has been increasing steadily on our structure. Just some impressions from last autumn's monitoring. You see here some little critters, maybe for the nerds amongst you, corkscrew anemone and like an arrow spider crab. This is the nest, actually a fish nest. The violet things here are eggs. So they're colonizing all sorts. This is like the inside structure of the brick, and there's all sorts of animals living inside, like these 2 different types of sea urchins, for example. This one's actually endangered, a pencil sea urchin. So it's just been really fun also going back and seeing what happens. And we're rolling this out, now that we know that we've measured it for 2 years, we're rolling it out more widely. And I think what's unique about the system that we have developed is really that we have already verified scientific impact to a certain extent. It's just 2 years in ecology terms, that's not a long time, but you have to start somewhere. It has withstood a hurricane category 1, very, very strong currents, despite this light structure. And that's because it has all these holes, actually distributes the energy through the system, creating even more diverse living spaces inside the structure. It's easy to assemble, and we can adapt it to literally any type of, sea surface, coastline, because the modules are so small. And that also has the advantage that we can do it all with manual work. Sometimes that's in the way of scaling, but here is actually in favor, because in a lot of places with reefs, you can't access with a barge with a crane, or they don't have a crane because it's a small island and they don't have money for a crane. So that's really important. And it also connects with this point here, is that we just scale with local labor. So if you need more workers, you get more jobs. So that's great. And really a point that's important for me is we want to create habitat, not mass. And I'm thinking here also coastal protection. At some point, we use these massive concrete barriers, right? These massive concrete tripods filled with concrete. What if we can just do the same, achieve the same effect of coastal protection, but use something that creates habitat and not mass? And one step that we have to do until we can get there is to actually show that it's stable enough to the forces that hit it, if it's really a coastal protection barrier. So that's one of the challenges ahead for the next few years. I'm actually going to ETH tomorrow to smash one of the bricks to just see what the material, so we're just putting force until it breaks. That will be fun. So it's been a great journey, and we're actually building 6 reefs just in the first half of the year. My colleagues are in the British Virgin Islands now building, together with a Swiss boarding school actually. They're educating their children around it. I mean, it's debatable if you want to fly children over to the BVIs every year, you know, but the effect, I think, of educating school children on this is not to be underestimated, right? And on these Swiss boarding schools, they are bound to have maybe a little bit more impact than your average school as well. And then we're going to the Philippines end of the month with the whole team, because we're building 3 reefs there. The government is involved, the local university is involved. I think it's going to be a frenzy. I'm really looking forward to it, also a little bit scared. But there, what's great is that the government is actually putting in, they're co-financing a production facility with our 3D printers and essentially everything that you need, because they think it could even be an economical thing for them for the future. South Philippines, there's not a lot going on Mindanao. Very new on tourism as well. So we're really trying to build up a local production facility there, maybe even for the whole region of the Coral Triangle, so Indonesia, and then Andaman Islands, so that whole area. Yeah, I won't bore you with that. We just closed our seed, though, which is great, together with becoming an AG. That feels really good, like it's moving forwards now. Here, I don't have that much time left, so let's not get into the details too much, but right now, I said we have to triple our impact every year in order to achieve that 1%. Triple or more, ideally. So that's obviously in the beginning, that's much easier than later. Right now, what we're really working on this year is to bring the cost of our system down, because that's still really expensive. It's like building a city for corals, like rebuilding the whole structure from the ground is different to planting a tree. And sometimes people have to understand then when they're like, oh, so I've got, $5,000, how much can I get for that? You can get a lot of forest, like new seedlings of forest, but you can't get a lot of coral reef for that. So that's one challenge, bringing the cost down and localizing the production. And then in the next phase is really bringing the cost down further by giving as much of the work, even the building up everything, the monitoring, to the locals. But also streamlining, like the design, for example, is a great thing to be done by AI. I'm working with a professor at ETH right now to just a first start with a master's student to show that we can have an AI iteratively design a reef shape based on the coastline and the known currents, wave and wind direction to, let's say you have a given number of modules or of mass that you want to build up. What's the best way to place them in order to protect the coastline and create habitat? Biodiversity data platform, I think that's something we all have to have. We have to monitor and show our impact. And then it's really scaling with, I'm thinking kind of a franchise model, but this is still really work in progress. Our customers currently are mostly corporates, by the way. So if you know any big corporates that are into biodiversity action within their sustainability portfolios, tell them about us. We now mostly all the reefs we're building this year with corporates. So they use it in their sustainability portfolio mainly. But also starting to work with resorts and with harbors. In working with harbors and ports, the downside a little bit, because we all come at it from the passion side, is that it's mitigation, and often it's direct mitigation, so they actually have to destroy a part of the reef for the port entrance, for example. But that's the way it is. They do that, so at least then we can rebuild that area. This is just a glimpse of the site in the Philippines. This is my colleague Hannah. She's doing all our field operations in the water, assessing the reef state. You see it's not very great. And yeah, this is just an example. I just want to show you, this is what a 1-year-old coral looks like if it's growing from a larva. But then obviously at some point it starts growing exponentially, so it'll get bigger with time. Like 4 years, you've seen those images from the Maldives before. After 4 years, this coral can be this big. I call her Coralie. Thank you, and I'm open for questions. Thank you. We're based in Zurich. We're an ETH spin-off.
Maybe you mentioned it. I was taking pictures, so if I lost like 30 seconds. But so if I compare this to tree plantings, I'm sorry about this. It's different, obviously. You have different models. So you have people that go for B2B. So they go for a big company. They ask like, hey, do you want to protect the forest? Or do you want to plant all those trees? And then you have the B2C one, which would be someone helping you plant 1 meter square. Protect 1 meter square. So why not going for this model and going for the big one with companies?
We've actually kind of pulled that along the side a little bit with an adopt a brick scheme or adopt a habitat. Just the difference, if I speak to a corporate, I have a 150,000 franc project with, say, I don't know, a few months of lead time. But getting that B2C, so that impact is just so much more of a journey. It's not that it's a no, but for now, is the B2B is really what works best for us. And on our website, reefs.com/get-involved.
Maybe I have a follow-up question on that. So it's a great presentation. Thanks very much. For your phase 1 go-to-market, what is the funding need you have? What do you expect, kind of money you're now an AG, so you're able to kind of get equity in? So
I think this one, we actually have that covered now. We just gave away equity for 450K. And that covers us for a while because we're unit economics profitable, so we just don't sell enough reefs yet. We can say sell reefs, but sell reef impact maybe. But if our sales forecast for this year is okay, we wouldn't even have to take on more money next year unless we want to employ a lot more people, which we probably will want to do. So with those 500K, we're okay now for a good year. Yeah, and then next year probably to just scale faster, we'll be looking for about 2 million.
Hey, thanks. Very interesting presentation. A bit close to my heart because I grew up in Andaman Islands, the place you mentioned.
Nice.
Just a quick question, going back to what he said. How complex is reef design in a sense? Is it just the lead time to getting to that goal of 150K, versus is it just it's too complex for an individual to do himself?
For an individual, probably yes. On the large scale, you want to have as high of a diversity of spaces as you can get. Sometimes that can be, I think on large scale, it's easier to design by a computer. But other than that, I think going by a few principles, ecological principles, most people could start designing something that works reasonably well. I think you just need to get a lot of different disciplines together. Be that about the material and what that does in the seawater, then the ecology, spaces, understanding the animals that you see or that you monitor. Does that mean it's actually becoming a reef, or is it maybe becoming something else that you didn't want? But why are you asking? Do you want to do something? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we're trying to roll out over the next years will really be all those great local NGOs that are usually starting with nursery work, so growing corals on lines or on little metal tables, to work with them and have them learn about how the system works and have them make the money with building the reefs and have them have the local production. And we just essentially bring in the capital from, rich Swiss corporates. Thank you.
So, a follow-up question from theirs. So, I understand right now, basically the coral reefs are grown and the structures are planned by your team. Is that how it works right now? So, I think that's probably potentially limiting the scalability. So, I think by working with like NGOs and people on the ground and know the local area, definitely it's much more scalable.
Absolutely, yeah.
And but you happen to know this kind of NGOs and all that, so it could be interesting for that kind of collaboration. And so if I understand correctly, so your core competitiveness is like the know-how and the technology of the structure of the coral reef building blocks and
right. It's more of a trade secret, and there's not the possibility of filing a patent on this, and we wouldn't even try. Actually, the 3D printing code is open source.
Yeah, I understand. So the know-hows and makes sense.
Putting it all together.
Yeah.
Also, of course, the customers, unique customers for this. They're not that easy to find sometimes.
Yeah, like the corporates. Yeah, like okay. Yeah, I think definitely we can talk and make something happen. So
sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure. I'll be around.
Yeah.
Are there any more questions? I guess one.
I can hear you.
For the live stream audience.
So, thanks for a good presentation. So, if you're a company, can you name a reef, brand the reef?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
We could even discuss logos, but we need the design freedom to make it work for ecology.
That was my next question. Thanks.
Underwater theme parks for large hotels, no problem. Underwater art, that also works as a reef, no problem.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Michelle.
Just to close the session for today, thank you so much. I mean, such an amazing audience, so many good questions, and actually, thank you so much to the 4 founders that we've met today. We've gone from the oceans to the skies, and to I've personally learned a lot. And just one call to action to take away: please do reach out to the founders, see where you can support. Together, I think we can amplify the voices and all the positive impact that these people are creating, and really excited to see where they are going and how they're developing over the next time. So thank you so much. This was the Tech for Impact showcase today on nature and biodiversity. And I think we're ready for the next session.